So JuJu Watkins proved once again that marketability matters. She gets this big Nike deal. But what's most intriguing to me about it, to be honest, what stood out the most is it's not like I'm surprised JuJu got a big marketing deal. In fact, we know that Caitlin Clark has the huge Nike deal. We know Paige Beckers has a deal. We know Asia has a shoe line in the works. Sabrina's shoes are actually up 5 times this year, while Nike struggles in sales. So Sabrina's shoes, Sabrina Ionescu, of course, of the Liberty, have been a success for Nike. And they are having success around women's basketball. And the other thing I found noteworthy about this is Charania, Shams for short, who took over for Adrian Wojnarowski. If you recall, there has been this long NBA insider feud where there'd be a Woj bomb or whatever the equivalent of that from Shams was. And it's been a running joke in NBA circles forever. And the way I always read it was that Woj had the plug with the front offices because his spin generally came from the front offices, and Shams had the plug with the players and the agents. Nonetheless, very recently, Woj decided to step down. And people were like, all right, who's going to take his spot? Turns out it was going to be Shams. It was inevitable. It was going to be Shams, and it was. That was announced yesterday. And the first major news break from Shams was about JuJu. So the first major news break from ESPN's new big NBA insider is about a women's basketball player, which is pretty cool and would not have happened in a previous era and time. And really, it makes me think about women's basketball on the collegiate level as a whole and how there are so many more stars there. Not even just when you're talking about the players like Paige and JuJu and the rest of the players who are going to make a name for themselves or already have, Flau'jae, obviously at LSU, but the coaches. I mean, they're big famous coaches: Gino Auriemma, Dawn Staley, Kim Mulkey, so on and so forth. Where on the men's side of things, you got Cooper Flagg, who's going to be, a pretty big deal at Duke this year. But the last time I can remember there being a men's college basketball star was a similar situation with Zion at Duke, and he was only there for 1 year. And the way that the men's game has evolved, so many players are either coming from, they're international and they go to the draft. Like if you looked at the NBA draft versus the WNBA draft this year, the WNBA draft was much more recognizable because a lot of the guys are playing internationally or finding a different route to the NBA or are just in college for one season. So there's no attachment to their story versus, Caitlin Clark. People followed what she did throughout her career at Iowa. And when she really burst on the scene was 2 years ago. She plays in the national championship, but she goes back for another season and gets back to another national championship, which leaves people invested. Same thing with Paige Beckers. She's last year getting eliminated in the Final Four, and now she's back for more with another chance in her final season at UConn. People are invested in her. And JuJu as well, who breaks the freshman scoring record and then is back. And we know she's not even just back for this year. She's going to be back for years to come. People are going to be invested in her. By the time she gets to the WNBA, she's going to be a huge star. So I don't know if it's a fluke the way that the women's ratings were better than the men's from the Final Four on last year. I don't know if they'll beat them head-to-head necessarily this year. And I'm sure they won't reach the heights they did last year because Clark isn't involved. But I still think it's just like with the WNBA where they fell to new highs. I think you're going to see those numbers higher than they were previously. And I think you'll see the gap smaller than it's been with the men if they don't pass them in certain matchups. Like if there's a USC UConn game, in the NCAA tournament, I don't see how that doesn't beat the respective men's game unless Duke is involved or something. And then there's JuJu herself. And, the point of marketability mattering, which I said at the top here. There's been a lot of talk about the shoe deals and everything. And most of it, let's be real, is centered around Asia. And when Clark got her deal, and I made the joke the other day, Asia had sent out the post saying delayed, not denied. From the further announcements, if we're to believe what Nike said, Asia already knew about her shoe deal then. So she was kind of playing off of whatever happened on social media at the time, despite knowing she had a shoe line on the way. And yet at that time, people were saying, why doesn't she get it? Why does she get it? Why does she get it? Clark and not Asia. We all know why Clark got the shoe deal. You have to be a moron to not understand why Clark got the shoe deal and why it was bigger than everybody else's shoe deal. Again, you have to be a moron to not be able to process that. At the same time, that doesn't mean I don't want other players to get deals. Obviously, Angel has her Reebok collection and everything, and I think Angel has her own pocket of marketability. Asia's a little bit more of a struggle, and when I think people try to make it, about race or other things, they miss the point in a lot of ways, because in a lot of ways it's about play style. I've used the comparison Tim Duncan and Allen Iverson. Tim Duncan was a better player than Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was always going to sell more shoes. And on the guy side of things, the big men have generally not been tremendously marketable, other than maybe Shaq. He's the only one I can think of who was like a superstar in that way. Otherwise, it's usually guards, players with the ball in their hands, players who are doing the bop bop, or the fadeaway, or the acrobatic finishes in the men's game, the slams in the women. Now it's the deep threes have become a thing, and JuJu is one of those players. And I think that is one of the changes that we're seeing happen across women's basketball now too, is the influx of talented guards. Because for so long, it's been a league dominated by bigs, going back to Candace Parker, obviously Asia and Breanna Stewart, and so on and so forth. It's been a league where bigs have had their, a chokehold, a stranglehold on what's going on. And Clark is an exciting guard who came in. Sabrina is an exciting guard. You see the oohs and ahs she gets at Barclays Center. Paige Beckers is an exciting guard. JuJu is an exciting guard. Fulwali, an exciting guard. Flaugier, more and more exciting guards are coming up. And I think if the player is likable and the player is marketable from their play style, the rest of it's going to take care of itself. I don't think you're going to see companies like Nike discriminate on who they're handing the shoe deals out to. The shoe deals are handed out to who they think are going to sell the shoes. And Nike's had a tough time selling shoes, but it looks like women's basketball could be one of the best things they have in their bag. Again, Sabrina's shoes up 5 times. We know Clark's shoes are going to do crazy numbers. We know Paige is on the way. JuJu's on the way. And women's basketball is only growing. But congratulations to JuJu Watkins. She's got a great smile. She's got a great game. She's everything you would want if you're a company trying to market a new star. And nothing says that this is star power more than it being the first news broken by Shams in his ESPN tenure.